Oops, hello, recording this. Hope this works. Bobcast, I'm on it again. On the God of name, listening, reply, question. Everything going together. YouTube. Share it, love it, kiss it, love you, marry me, sexy, I love you. Everything going together is good thing, very good, I love you. Reply, please. Reply, please.
This podcast is sponsored by Merkle B2B. Curious to know how Merkle B2B can connect you with the right audience? It's not magic. It's the integration of data, technology, and creativity. Discover more at merkleb2b.com.
This is your tech news briefing for Wednesday, January 26th. I'm Zoe Thomas for the Wall Street Journal. Millennials ushered in the era of financial technology as we know it. The use of payment apps, digital investing platforms, and the acceleration of online banking was adopted by a generation that saw the internet as a way of streamlining many of the industries their parents had to deal with. But Generation Z, the next generation, well, they've grown up with these advancements. So what are they looking for from the fintech industry? On today's show, Wall Street Journal contributor Svati Kirsten Narula joins us to discuss how fintech firms are competing to attract young users. That's after these headlines. It's a big week for tech earnings. Microsoft kicked things off, reporting continued growth in its earnings last quarter. To the surprise and disappointment of some analysts, much of the company's profits came from non-cloud related services. Our tech reporter Aaron Tilley has more.
Their beats were in sort of their non-cloud areas, which is where Microsoft is leaning on for a lot of its growth and its strength these days. Their earnings beats mostly came from their more personal computing segment, which includes their Windows operating system and Xbox and search and advertising. These results show some amount of deceleration for cloud growth. The cloud boomed so much during the pandemic, we're seeing a bit of a slowdown compared to the rapid growth of the past 2 years during the pandemic.
Microsoft shares fell in after-hours trading. After getting pushback from privacy advocates, Google is changing up its plans for how to target online ads without using cookies. Its new proposal, called Topics, would allow online advertisers to target broad categories of users, for example, people who are interested in fitness or travel. Its previous plan would have grouped together Google users with similar browsing histories. Under the new plan, Google's Chrome browser would sort people into interest groups based on their recent browsing history, and users would be able to see and delete interests, or turn the system off entirely. Tech could be targeted in the U.S. push to keep Russia in line. The Biden administration is considering banning the export of various products with microelectronics based on U.S. equipment, software, or technology to Russia if it invades Ukraine. Senior officials say the goal would be to hit areas that Russian President Vladimir Putin has made a priority, like artificial intelligence and quantum computing. It comes as Russia continues to amass troops and military gear along Ukraine's border. A Hollywood visual effects studio is entering the streaming wars through a SPAC merger. DNEG isn't a household name, but it's done Oscar-winning visuals work on movies like Inception and Tenet, and more recently the new Matrix movie and the latest James Bond film, No Time to Die. The roughly $1.6 billion merger comes as content creators like Disney and Netflix spend billions to accelerate movie and TV production and compete for viewers. And our markets editor, Jim Wilhite, says that's not the only place DNEG is looking to grow.
Well, DNEG's CEO has said that demand uptick is still very much ongoing. In part, that's because the big players trying to do what they can to lure more viewers to their platforms. But the company's also said that they'd like to expand into gaming, and its animation work could also potentially find a home in the metaverse, where people could virtually interact online.
You can hear more from Jim on yesterday's AM edition of our sister podcast, What's News. And you may remember at the end of last year we covered the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope. Well, NASA's long-awaited replacement for the famed Hubble telescope has at last reached its final destination, roughly 1 million miles from Earth. The $10 billion telescope is expected to capture unprecedented views of far-flung galaxies. Klaus Pontoppidan is a project scientist at Space Telescope Science Institute.
A telescope is really a time machine. Because light travels at a finite speed through the universe, we see the universe as it existed when that light was emitted.
That prospect is creating a lot of excitement in the scientific community about what it could mean for space exploration.
We have plans for the first year, where things that we think we'll see. We think we'll see the first galaxies. We will characterize the atmospheres of exoplanets, but we will find new things that we have no idea exists right now. And I'm so excited to find out what that is.
Alright, coming up, they share their personal lives, they avoid debt, and they do everything online. So, what do the digital natives of Generation Z want from fintech? We'll discuss after the break.
This podcast is sponsored by Merkle B2B, driven by data, enabled by technology, powered by creativity. We can help connect you with the right audience at the right place and the right time. Learn more at merkleb2b.com.
The people who were born roughly between the mid-1990s and early 2010s are broadly known as Gen Z. In the US, this is a group that has never known a world without the internet. And when it comes to their money, they haven't known a world without digital banking. For financial firms that want to grab the business of this generation as it comes of age, that means embracing tech and Gen Z's values. Joining us to discuss what those are and how fintech firms are competing for this business is WSJ contributor Svati Kirsten Narula. Thanks for coming on the show, Svati.
Thanks for having me.
So, Gen Z grew up with technology, really integrated into their lives. Broadly, how are their expectations about financial technology different from previous generations?
Yeah, so it's not enough anymore for a financial firm to offer a mobile app or for that app to just work seamlessly and quickly. I think Gen Z expects to be able to make transactions happen on their phone really quickly with, as few taps as possible, as little information being entered as possible. They don't want to have to type their name a second time. They don't even really want to have to do two-factor authentication, which brings up some privacy concerns. They just want everything to happen really, really quickly and really, really easily. They're also looking for highly personalized experiences. I think that's the big difference between Gen Z and older generations. They don't want to use products that were designed for like hundreds of millions of people. And so far, that seems to be really working for fintechs. Fintechs are able to detect patterns in what their users are doing, and that builds trust with them too. So there was a survey done in 2021 saying that 51% of Gen Z consumers actually name a fintech company as their most trusted financial brand, while only 23% of them name a national bank as their most trusted financial brand.
Okay then, so how are fintechs setting themselves apart with that generation?
So fintechs are starting to come around to the idea that their financial product doesn't just have to work and fill a need that people want. It also has to sort of reflect their identity. This is something that a couple investors I talked to for this story said, that the next wave of development in fintech is really creating products that are hyper-personalized and speak to Gen Z's values. So what one person told me, which I thought was really funny, was like for older generations, you walk down the street and you see that someone might have a Subaru parked in their driveway. And then you make some assumptions about who lives there based on the fact that they have a Subaru. He thinks that in the future, it's going to be like that when you're looking at what financial products people use. And so if you're a member of Generation Z, the type of bank you have on your phone or the type of financial apps you use, those are going to say something about your identity.
Let's stay on that for a second. So what are fintechs then doing to make sure that they say the right things to attract Gen Z?
Well, so another thing that you have to realize now, and this isn't, I guess, unique to Gen Z, but it's probably true for millennials too, is just when you have access to the whole country, you can make very niche products. And then you can reach millions and millions of people because, you're not limited to physical bank branches anymore, right? So there are a lot of new online banks This one called Aspiration is a great example because it's an environmentally friendly bank. And so they are making checking accounts and savings accounts, and they're offering a debit card that has all of these little benefits for people who want their money to go toward environmentally friendly things. So things like the bank promises to buy carbon offsets for every gallon of gas you purchase with its card, or the bank promises to not put any of your money that you give it, to fund oil and coal projects. So it's trying to get you to bank with them because you care about the environment. That's your value.
I wonder, though, it used to be that you would go and get whatever financial product got you the most money or got you the best deal. So are these personalizations now more important than those financial considerations?
I think both are really important. I think these personalizations are just a way for companies to stand out. The bottom line, the financial stuff has to be good. You have to give people services that make sense for them and are good deals. But that's just table stakes, So then how do you distinguish yourself? You play into their values.
I want to talk about one area of finance in particular, debt. How are fintechs approaching Gen Z's feelings on debt differently from other generations?
Yeah, so Gen Z definitely has different attitudes toward credit card debt than other generations did. I think, you will still find a lot of millennials who have plenty of consumer debt on their credit cards. And for a lot of Gen Zers that I talked to for this story, the idea of credit card debt was like their worst fear. So there was a survey not too long ago from the Bank Administration Institute, and that survey found that only 17% of people in Generation Z prefer to use a credit card when they're paying for things. And that's really, really different from millennials and baby boomers. Millennials and baby boomers, when both of those generations were surveyed about their credit card use, 46% of millennials said their first choice for paying for things was using a credit card. 47% of baby boomers said their first choice was to use a credit card. Gen Zers much, much prefer to use debit. I talked to a couple of people who do have credit cards, but they watch them obsessively and they pay them off every week because they're so afraid of any interest building up. They're so afraid of any charges building up on that card, but they do want the rewards. It's true that there are a lot of credit cards out there that offer great rewards. What we are seeing is new companies like Point, which offers something called a point card, are creating debit cards that offer all the rewards associated with credit cards traditionally, but they're debit cards. And that's good not only because Gen Zers are wary of credit card debt, but a lot of them haven't been able to access credit yet. And so right now, people between the ages of 18 and 21, they can't secure credit as easily as older generations could. So a lot of them use debit a lot more. And then when they want to finance bigger purchases, like I talked to someone who needed to spend almost $600 on new tires for his car, he really didn't want to put that on credit. So he used a buy now, pay later plan. So we are seeing the explosion of buy now, pay later fintech firms like Affirm, Klarna, Afterpay that are really having a lot of success with this group of younger consumers who either don't have credit cards or are reluctant to use their credit cards when they need to finance those big purchases.
Well, then, what does this explosion of financial tech firms and, their pickup by Gen Z mean for traditional banks?
I think traditional banks are picking up on, number one, the need for personalization. So they are trying to let users know what their spending looks like and how it stacks up. I mean, that's like a really popular thing. It's just analyzing a consumer's spending and telling them about themselves. Giving people personalized insights about their own financial habits is something that fintechs are doing and traditional banks are doing. The buy now, pay later stuff, traditional banks and traditional credit card companies are starting to offer that too. They're also starting to pick up on how values-driven Generation Z can be. And one great example of that is this regional bank called Bank of the West, which now, if you go on their website, they will advertise the fact that their CEO is a woman. They know that diversity in leadership is important to younger people now.
That was WSJ contributor Svati Kirsten Narula. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Get out the headphones. And I'm saying something like, credit cards and everything, it can value and it can do all these things. I can say that because I remember a friend said, oh, I went to this bank and I went to this other one and they give me $500 and they said, if I spend that 500, I got to put back the money quick, otherwise they put interest on me. And you know, he was buying things, putting back money in quickly, then buying this. Always had the $500. I don't know how, but he was crazy a little bit. My God, all these things. And you can do this, like you can go to certain website and get a bank card and borrow money from a loan place. Incredible, my friend, incredible. Things you can do these days is incredible. Gangsters Paradise, YouTube, Facebook. I don't know. If you follow me, you don't follow me, I love you. Let's try this one, please. Excuse me. Be nice, please. Section, you know it.
This week on the Vergecast, Alex Kranz joins the show. We talk about CES 2022.
I'll be wrong and everybody will yell at me.
Yeah.
But it feels pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. It feels like...
It feels like maybe, yeah.
Especially, I think especially with Apple being like, our computers don't need power. Okay, I would say the NVIDIA CES keynote experience has always been an impressionistic sort of hour or two of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You never really know what they're announcing, but it seems it's kind of the same here, right?
With the 30, they did one year with like, was it the 2060 or the 3060? They announced at CES, and that was like kind of a surprise and kind of a delight. But this year was like very just bread and butter NVIDIA being like, yep, here's some iterative updates. Surprise, we're doing 3080 Ti and 3070 Ti laptop GPUs. Like, yes, I could have predicted that. I could have written that story before you announced.
All right, so let's talk about the laptops. This Dell XPS 13 Plus.
Oh, yeah.
You got to read Monica's piece on it. It's
man,
great.
like Kool-Aid Man. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's well, here's what I'll say. First, I'm going to start by giving Dell a compliment. Most companies, when they have a hit product, just ride that product with no changes for as long as they can.
Into the ground.
The XPS 13 is a hit product. The XPS 13 Plus is the opposite of riding a successful design into the ground. It is more like, it's like honestly, like Dell was like, someone will disrupt us if we don't make an invisible trackpad first. Yeah. And they like alone, you know, like they're down in Austin, like just running around in circles, like, like they've convinced themselves that this problem exists. It is nuts. This is one of the most nuts looking laptops I've ever seen. Totally flat keyboard deck. The trackpad is just, it's not there. Like the whole bottom deck is trackpad.
Well, no, not the whole bottom deck is trackpad, but it's a flat deck and then the trackpad is under one section of it, but there's no demarcation of where the trackpad is.
Okay, so it's worse than I thought. And then it has a touch bar, like a thing that can only be described as a touch bar, not an LCD screen.
Unless you're in the room with somebody who works for Dell, in which case they will punch you in the face.
But all the function keys are a capacitive touch function row.
Yep.
This feels like...
I'm just going to read the Monica quote. A capacitive touch function row, which refers to little LED buttons on a flat bar that you can tap to fiddle with things like brightness and volume. Dell insists this is not a touch bar, parentheses, but it is, I mean, a bar that you touch to toggle things. So anyone else whose brain immediately jumped to that conclusion, you are valid and I see you. Like, that's where Monica got to.
Yeah. We're not done with the weird things in this laptop,
Continue, by all means.
The keyboard is also completely flat to the rest of the deck.
Yes.
Just flat keys, always a risk when you see a brand new keyboard design. Hopefully it's okay. Monica is like, she's not going to make a judgment yet. And then last but not least, guess what it lacks?
This is the best part.
Oh, no.
A headphone jack.
Oh, no. What are you doing?
Johnny Ive made this. This is his laptop.
This is Ive's revenge.
He went over to Dell and made this. It's incredible.
He like whispered to Tim Cook, he's like, I'm going to Texas. I won't tell you what I'm working on, but you'll know.
And then we got the XPS 13 Plus.
I'm assuming it's Dell. I'm assuming they're going to keep the standard XPS 13 design around forever because that's what Dell does. But I will say it is rare to see a company mess with its hit product this dramatically.
Yeah.
Like if they were like, this is our design laptop, we'd be like, oh yeah, it's weird. You made some weird choices.
You think this is a Mustang Mach-E situation where they made the crazy laptop and then someone said, actually, we should call that an XPS. It's pretty good.
Ooh.
This week on the Vergecast, Dieter Brown is on vacation, but Alex Kramer right after this. We'll be right back.
Recording, I took the thing. I don't know where I was. Anyway, to say something was like technology crazy, like YouTube crazy. Can you YouTube this? Can you YouTube that? Can you YouTube? And Facebook was going on about Facebook multi-millionaire, all this, and my TV is called Chick, CHIQ, Chick, and it's got heaps of things in it, like Google Chrome and other stuff, and it's really pretty cool. I like my TV, so it's cool. It's 55 inch. Oh, it's pretty big. It's not that big, but it's pretty big. I might still record. Whoa. Adios, amigos. Sorry. Excuse me. He's more, please.
Yes, and Team Bullying R. We'll hold it when he's back. We got to take a break. Russell, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Dan Seifert will be on right after this. We'll be right back. If you're a software engineer, you know the nightmare of the 9 p.m. email well. You're on the couch, you're about to dig in, food is always around the corner.
Are these guys sprinkling all over their communications? We're here to let you in on a major secret. They probably use Klaviyo. Klaviyo takes the mystery out of email and SMS marketing, offering all you marketers, entrepreneurs, and creators out there the data-driven, automated platform you need to create authentic relationships with your customers, just like a top-tier brand. Say goodbye to blasting vague newsletters to an entire mass of faceless people. Combine your customer data with a smart marketing platform like Klaviyo, and you'll engage every customer one-on-one like they're your only customer. Engagement like this builds valuable relationships that will make you money. If you're the creator of an e-commerce brand, you need a platform that hustles as hard as you do. Klaviyo unlocks the power of your e-commerce data so you can personalize and automate messages that keep customers coming back. To get started with a free trial of Klaviyo, visit klaviyo.com/Vox. That's klaviyo.com/Vox.
We're back.
I did it again. I'm going to take it out this time, the headphones. Did it again. Oh, it's recording again, is it? Oh.
This week on the Vergecast, new Verge Games Report.
Man, I'm tripping out balls, man. I'm tripping balls here. I'm tripping balls, mate. I'm tripping. Questions. Soy chileno, YouTuber chileno, Facebooker chileno. That's all I got to do, say that I'm Chilean. In Australia, we have many problems with computers, tanks, army, chips. We have many different buildings. One was superannuation building. It's incredible. Too many to tell, and it's a long story, so don't worry. I'm trying to get there as soon as I can. My Lord, I am fantastic. I love you.
It came out, and then there were instructions on how to clean the Apple polishing cloth this week, which surprisingly were not to buy another one.
It's not getting great reviews, is it? I mean, have we done a proper review yet?
Well, that's your job.
I know.
You're a senior polishing cloth reporter. You got to get you one. Did you buy one?
I haven't. I just wasn't sure. I don't know. It just seems kind of... I have to. You're right. I just have to. I'm going to do it.
This is your whole bit on the show. And you're just
I know. I got to commit to the bit.
All right. You've got a big scoop this week. What's going on?
Yeah. So Google is doing something in AR. And it's a thing. It's very early. but they have revived aspirations to do hardware. Don't call it glass. It's called Project Iris, and it is seemingly going to be similar to headsets we have coming from Meta called Project Cambria and Apple as soon as later this year. A mixed reality, probably very expensive thing with pass-through video. So basically cheating using the video feed of the world you're seeing to throw in graphics and give you that kind of AR, but more immersive experience. And so we kind of broke some details on that. This is under Clay Bavor, who reports to Sundar Pichai, has been at Google forever, managed Google's many fits and starts in this area. It's safe to say Google has a very spotty track record with this stuff, dating back to Glass, of course, but also people probably remember Google Cardboard, Daydream, the VR platform that barely lived, and they killed quickly as Oculus took off. And then they bought this AR glasses company called North in 2020 in Canada that was doing kind of smart glasses, kind of more bare bones Google Glass-esque stuff. And they still work at Google, but I think probably on something else. So yeah, Google's going to Google. They're going to look at everything, but they're definitely hiring up for this right now and wanting to make it more of a priority and throwing a bunch of headcount and budget at it. So the headset wars are on.
So your piece was in depth. People should read it. They have a lot of people. There's a lot of executives paying attention to this now. You also, is it Skyline?
Starline, yes.
Starline. So they announced this video conferencing technology. It's like a display technology. I think Lauren Good at Wired got to go play with it when they announced it. They're building that in parallel, right? Are the display technologies connected? Because that is like a very expensive hologram projector idea.
So Google's display technologies are connected in some ways. I don't know a lot about the display tech in this headset, but I have to imagine they're similar. Google is very interested in light field technology, which allows you to do some really kind of fancy 3D stuff. They have the CTO of Lytro working on this headset as a distinguished engineer, and light field tech is used, I think, in Starline. I'm going to get corrected very swiftly if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, I mean, Starline is this very expensive, costs tens of thousands to make booth that has a bunch of sensors, cameras, and a very high-res display, and it makes it apparently, I've never tried it, but people who have tried it have said it's one of the most impressive tech demos they've ever seen. You really feel like you're looking at another human that's sitting in front of you because of the depth that it provides. And Google, we kind of note in this story, is wanting to make Starline a kind of permanent part of its hybrid work strategy for its own employee base going forward. So Starline's kind of throughout the offices for talking with your colleagues who aren't in the office that day. And they're also planning a pilot program with some various Fortune 500 companies to also try to get Starline in there, deployed in those companies. The problem is that it's, like I said, incredibly expensive, and they're focused on, trying to get it under like 10,000. But they're also targeting 2024 for trying to get Starline out the door in some commercial fashion, and also Iris. I think both of those year dates are very aspirational. In these companies, you kind of need to give everyone a date to marshal around. Otherwise, you just kind of twiddle your thumbs forever. And I have a feeling that's more of what this is. The thing is like all these headsets are going to be hitting around the same time. And I think all of the companies are going, wow, who's going to be first? Who's going to have the best thing? And Google, I have a feeling, has a little bit of FOMO here because they have the resources. They've had, when I was reporting this story out, I didn't put this on the story, but, Clay Bavor and his team with Daydream, they had basically the Oculus Quest before the first Oculus Quest. And I'm not talking about the one where you put a phone in. I'm talking about the truly untethered standalone VR. They had a really good prototype of that, and they just never shipped it because they got distracted by ARKit, and then they did AR Core and Lens and all these things. So Google's just been very flighty with its investments in there, and that's, I think, going to be the biggest thing to watch is can they stay focused and invest aggressively enough in this to match Meta, which is spending the most by far, and Apple, which is low-key, has thousands of people working on this and is willing to bet the farm if it needs to. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, Clay Bavor has this very interesting position where he's now the VP of Labs, and this unit was created just last year, I think in like November, and he was moved out from Rick Osolo, the head of hardware, reporting directly to Sundar. And his projects are Starline, Iris, which has not been known until my report this week, a new blockchain division, which was just also reported on this week. So he's got all kind of the weird stuff, but he's definitely like very tight with Sundar, bragging about budget and headcount, all that. So I think, this is definitely an area to watch. I'm also just like, take a healthy dose of skepticism with any Google AR stuff because they have not shown they're willing to see it through to the end.
I mean, that's Google. When you're like, can Google stay focused? Like I can point you to any number of messaging apps.
Right.
Like that, I think, is the biggest knock on Google is they got to pick one thing and iterate it. The idea that they had something that looked like the Quest to the Quest 2, that's got to hurt, right? Because the Quest 2 is a great product. We like it a lot. It's a mid-range Android phone that you wear on your face. Like it runs Android. It has a Qualcomm, like effectively a mid-range Qualcomm processor in it. I think there was a report that Facebook tried to move away from Android and make their own operating system, and then Facebook denied it and said they're still working on it. But at the end of the day, it's running Android. So Google had all of the pieces.
The person who was building that operating system just went to Google to work on Iris, the OS for it. It all comes around. Yeah, it's a very interesting talent scene right now because Meta is out. What I'm hearing is that Meta is outspending everyone for talent in this area, and so it's kind of just like Zuck, Eye of Sauron on this space, and like anything must be his. And so I think Google and Apple are feeling the heat, and I think Google realizes they need to have something in this space, and that the tech is good. I mean, I do think we are going to be blown away, and I think a lot of skeptics are going to be kind of change their tune a bit when a lot of these headsets start hitting in the next couple of years. I mean, obviously Apple's going to be a big moment, but even Cambria, probably this Google thing, the tech with eye tracking and the resolution of these things is going to get so much better. And I think it's going to be like, oh, wow, this is like what a retina screen is type moment for people. And that's all going to be hitting in the next couple of years based on what everyone's working on.
I've been very skeptical of that hardware promise on this show. I think it's very challenging, but such is the way of hardware, right? It will improve. I think the question I have is like, on the software side, what is the point of some of this stuff? Like, Facebook has made it pretty clear, right? They're just buying everything. They're really invested in gaming. They've got, meetings in like Horizon Workspace, right? They have a picture because they're shipping stuff. So the picture is at least a little bit coherent just because it exists. Apple is pretty unclear to me what they expect you to do when you're wearing this thing on your face all day. There is a report that they don't want to use the word metaverse. They don't think you should wear a headset all day. It's like in and out. We'll see. Google is by far the most question marky of them all, right? Because they just aren't committed to any software ideas in that way.
Well, so Google has Lens, which I think is arguably the most compelling thing you could imagine. I know your killer app is like recognizing someone's face, and I agree that's a killer app. But like Lens on a headset that you wear all day, and this is not what Iris is, by the way. This is not what Apple's device is going to be. We need to separate these two things. So like AR glasses you wear every day are not coming for a very long time in a like very good form factor. These very expensive high-res headsets are, though. And I think even something like Lens on a headset like that could be compelling, even if you're mostly in your house or your office. And just like I reported like the guy who founded Assistant, Scott Huffman within Google, is working on this headset. Like, they have the AI machine learning tech to really do something interesting, but you're right. I mean, it's not proven what it will be. I mean, Google and Apple are both platform companies, and the way they approach new categories is like, let the developers decide, right? Like the iPhone famously didn't have an app store. Apple really had no idea what was going to happen with the app store. And it probably is going to be the same thing with the headset. They're going to rely on developers to come up with ideas for it. But yeah, we haven't really seen what the most compelling use case is. I imagine they'll lean into productivity and stuff because this is something you wear at home. This isn't going to be something that even though it's untethered, the prototypes, like you're not going to take it out and walk down the street with it. I did see a Twitter video of a guy walking with an Oculus Quest on down the Riverwalk down in Chicago with like a suit on, and people just like, well, what? I mean, that's awesome.
That's amazing.
Totally recommend doing that with pass-through enabled.
You're not supposed to wear those things outside. By the way, we keep saying Oculus. It's a Meta. It's technically a Meta Quest now. By the way, they are very clear that you should not wear these things outside.
No, you should not. You absolutely should not. And like that's what these headsets are. They're meant to be entertainment, productivity in the home type devices, and I think that's what we're going to have for a while. The truly heads up glasses type thing, that's not ready.
When you think about the overall like software play, right? You're in the home, maybe you're doing work from home, you've got this stuff on your face. Like Google doesn't have that, even with Android, right? Like there is some productivity in gaming that happens on the iOS platform. You can see those developers move over. You see Facebook just like building that application ecosystem and then buying whoever is successful. That's a great move for them. That it's getting them scrutiny from the FTC. Mm-hmm. I just don't know how Google's going to court those developers. Like that to me is the big question mark here. We see it every year at I/O, right? Like that's their developer conference. And we hear about a lot of technologies that Google's going to build. And then we just like kind of wait. And I just wonder, like to me, the idea that they're doing it themselves and it's a hardware software integrated product and it's not a VR OS for other vendors to build is just like very indicative of Google's entire experience with Android.
Yeah, I mean, this is running custom silicone using Pixel stuff as well. Yeah, it is very indicative. I think some of the feedback I've gotten already from the story is like developers just don't trust Google here, obviously, and we're burned by Daydream. And a lot of that developer attention is now just in Meta's world firmly, also because there is no other company to speak of that's actually doing stuff in the space. So that's going to definitely be an uphill battle. I mean, they have more money than God. So like, if they have enough determination, they can make it happen. But that's always the question with Google is like, what is their level of determination? And with Meta, that it is bet the farm, right? It is like, this is our future. Google has a lot of things going on. And yeah, Sundar may think this is cool and they may have some FOMO and they may realize they need a headset, but they'll be fine if they don't, right? And so that's the question is like, can they hire enough people too? Because the talent industry in this space is very it's illiquid right now. So I'm very skeptical of this one, but I thought it was important to like kind of peel the veil back a little bit and show people that Google has something going on. They've been kind of hinting at it, but it's definitely a thing. It's very early. They don't even have like go-to-market figured out. They don't even know like the customer verticals. They're still trying to figure all that out, but it's like apparently a pretty cool tech demo. So that's like kind of Google in a nutshell, right?
It's very much Google in a nutshell. Is there an open version of this? I realized like just in asking that last question, all of these products are the iPhone model, right? Closed software, hardware integrated. And maybe, this is a very hard product to build and to get right. But it just feels like there's no windows of AR or VR yet.
No, I mean, maybe Google, with Daydream, they worked with Lenovo on the hardware. Maybe they will work with an OEM. The moment these headsets hit, Samsung is going to be calling Google. They're going to be calling Meta and going, like, hello, where's my headset, right? Like the OEMs are going to want in on this. And Google's well positioned to do that given their history and how they operate. So like maybe they will go that route. Again, they are a platform thinking company, so I could see that. But yeah, I think they've realized like Apple and Meta that you need the custom silicone, you need your own data centers. Another part of this is that, they're wanting to do kind of remote rendering with their data centers and try to like take some of the compute off the headset. And Google's very good at that. They have, best in class cloud.
Oh, I'm gonna cut it. The name of God, God, na, God, YouTube, Facebook, Google, plus the single, cinco, pingo, dingo, perdón. Oh, could I do this one? Amigo, it's one. Oh, the Australian guy on the money, is it? What's he about to?
You're listening to SBS On The Money with Ricardo Gonçalves.
Hi everyone, it's a daily 10-minute business and finance news wrap for this Wednesday, the 22nd of December 2021. Later, we'll take a look at the investment opportunities for 2022 in the share market. But first, let's go to the property market because while it's been pretty hot this year, there are new signs of a significant cooling as we speak. The team over at Domain says vendors are having to adjust their price expectations, especially in what is known as premium suburbs. So, for example, if you're in Sydney, the area where vendors are having to adjust their initial price expectations the most is on the northern beaches, down by as much as 18.6%. In Melbourne, for example, it's the inner south, 12.5%. The area with the smallest adjustment in price expectations is in the Australian Capital Territory, the ACT, or Canberra, down by about 5.6%. For more, Sarah Conti spoke earlier with Domain's Nicola...
No, wait up. No, that's wrong. You're going to be killed. No, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. This is one of the latest. No, that's wrong too.
Inflation, again, it's driven by those supply chain disruptions that are very, very severe. And it can be anything from lumber prices to transport costs from shipping containers being passed on to energy prices, which are hitting some real key points of challenge. For example, shortage of diesel, underinvestment, high demand, etc.
It's leading to a withdrawal of economic stimulus by global central banks as official interest rates prepare to rise. While
Okay. That one, yes. The interest rate and all that, yes, I understand that because I went to my shop and there was no pencils and things that was there before, and it's not there, like different frozen food like chips and other thing wasn't there. Only the product that the farmer had, like the $3-4. Next minute you got a packet, buy in bulk, and then don't go to the shop, mate. It's incredible. Educate yourself. Be loved. Learn, script and move it. That stuff. Be fantastic, outrightic. I love you and good for you. Listen and reply. Give me a question, please.
inflation talk dominated the markets, Luke Larrative from Seneca Financial Solutions says regional politics was also a key story of 2021.
From the 220% export tariffs put onto wine growers to the 80% tariff put onto barley to the Prime Minister's comments around the COVID-19 investigation, arguably the relationship with China has never really been worse. You throw in the sort of second and third derivative impacts potentially from a collapse of Evergrande and the broadening impacts of a slower Chinese growth story.
Well, then you can talk about music. My battery's gonna go. Music and selling records, being famous, a famous politician, a famous book. Someone wrote a book about other extraterrestrial or someone is special or something out of the ordinary, someone good and something new, something spiritual with champion. You know what I mean? They already have everything. Anyway, it's all going together. I love you, extraterrestrial. I love you, whoever it is. I love you.
Can have some serious and relevant impacts on the Australian economy.
An economy which the Reserve Bank believes will grow by global central banks as official interest rates prepare to rise. While inflation talk dominates the markets, Luke Larrative from Seneca Financial Solutions says...
And it can be anything from lumber prices to transport costs from shipping containers being passed on to energy prices, which are hitting some real key points of challenge. For example, shortage of diesel, underinvestment, high demand, etc.
It's leading to a withdrawal of economic stimulus by global central banks as official interest rates prepare to rise. While inflation talk dominated the markets, Luke Larrative from Seneca Financial Solutions says regional politics was also a key story of 2021.
From the 220% export tariffs put onto wine growers to the 80% tariff put onto barley to the Prime Minister's comments around the COVID-19 investigation, arguably the relationship with China has never really been worse. You throw in the sort of second and third derivative impacts potentially from a collapse of Evergrande and the broadening impacts of a slower Chinese growth story. It can have some serious and relevant impacts on the Australian economy.
An economy which the Reserve Bank believes will grow by 5.5% next year. Wavestone Capital's Catherine Orfrey says it'll be driven by business and the consumer.
Australians have saved like 84 billion in the September quarter during lockdown predominantly. And I think that bodes really well.
Reopens amid huge demand and businesses and factories adjust to a COVID world. George Babouris from K2 Asset Management says inflation is kicking in.
Global inflation, again, it's driven by those supply chain disruptions that are very, very severe. And it can be anything from lumber prices to transport costs from shipping containers being passed on to energy prices, which are hitting some real key points of challenge. For example, shortage of diesel, underinvestment, higher demand, etc.
It's leading to a withdrawal of economic stimulus by global central banks as official interest rates prepare to rise. While inflation talk dominated the markets, Luke Larrative from Seneca Financial Solutions says regional politics was also a key story of 2021.
From the 220% export tariffs put onto wine growers to the 80% tariff put onto barley to the Prime Minister's comments around the COVID-19 investigation. Arguably the relationship with China has never really been worse. You throw in the sort of second and third derivative impacts potentially from a collapse of Evergrande and the broadening impacts of a slower Chinese growth story. It can have some serious and relevant impacts on the Australian economy.
An economy which the Reserve Bank believes will grow by 5.5% next year. Wavestone Capital's Catherine Orfrey says it'll be driven by business and the consumer.
Australians have saved like 84 billion in the September quarter during lockdown predominantly. And I think that bodes really well for 2022 in terms of the fact that, 2/3 of the economy is driven by the consumer. And if consumers have a lot of savings, they're clearly going to be spending it through 2022. So that's quite supportive for the earnings outlook for 2022 and therefore the stock market.
The stock market was dominated by merger and acquisition activity and some of the biggest ever seen, including the record-breaking $39 billion takeover of Afterpay by US payments giant Square, which has changed its name to Block, and Sydney Airport's record cash sale to the Sydney Aviation Alliance Consortium for $32.6 billion. Here's Catherine Orfrey.
It suggests that what underlying, confidence from boards and management teams in order to take advantage of cheap debt, interest rates at record low, their balance sheets are in good shape, and so they can see that, they can look for growth opportunities.
BHP also offloaded its petroleum assets to Woodside as it looked to focus on green energy. Julia Lee from Berman Invest says it's a trend being seen across the market.
And that's not only being driven by retail clients, but it's being driven by the highest levels of government policy, as well as how institutional funds are flowing. And no doubt this is a structural shift that's going to impact us for many decades.
As for the year ahead, Henry Jennings from Markets Today has this view.
I think the year ahead is going to be more volatile. There's a number of political issues on the horizon. We've got the federal election, we've got midterms in the US, and we've got central banks dealing with that inflation.
Ricardo Gonçalves, SBS News.
I'll stop that. Okay, I stopped that. I gotta say something because creating the future. We are the future. We can be breaking. We can be taken. We are the champion gonna be. Oh, go South Sydney Rabbitohs Rugby League team. Go South Sydney Rugby League team. Okay, many things are happening. Education, it could be one idea. Educate yourself because you might do the wrong thing now. You know what I mean? You have to have your things in your everyday conservative, cultivate your day out, having things all around that you might need, like soap, shoes, clothes, in advance and all futuristic. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Maybe I won't do it. See, I'm so stupid. I'm saying the things that are supposed to be done, like a 30-minute walk, look for the future and create something that you in your mind need to be fresh and interested or something, the other planet. But anyway, do the best, International Computer Network. How this turned off? Okay. We're gonna go up here. I think up here. Oh yeah, it's nearly with the battery up here, and then we say, listen and reply, family matters, good manners. Soy chileno. I am sorry. I love you. Te amo. Te quiero. YouTube reply. Facebook. Anywhere you go. International computer. Love you. Reply.